Hello and welcome to Cassie Swift. Thank you so much for joining me on the Legacy Live podcast. And today, the topic we're talking about is bullying and child mental health. And I invited Cassie to come and talk about this because of her unique experience, life lived and healed experience, and the work that she is now doing to support and empower children, which is transformational and incredible. So thank you so much, Cassie, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So Cassie, it would be really great for you to share with us. I ask everybody when I remember, I ask everybody on my podcast to tell me, what is the legacy that you are creating? So I'm going to start with the big question with you.
The legacy I'm creating, as it's to do with bullying, I don't want children to be bullied and to go through the experience I did. So I'm trying to create a whole new generation that will go on and see things differently and approach things differently and have more of an open mind, and just be more loving and caring towards one another, with the realization of the impact they can have with their words. So
Yeah, fantastic. And, it's great the way that obviously what you're doing with your work and your life's kind of purpose really fits very well into today's topic. In terms of your business, what do you feel the legacy you're creating with your business is?
so with what I do, I empower their children to become their true selves. So
Mhm.
to be comfortable with their true selves, to be confident in their true selves, and to really step into and own who they are with confidence and with great self-esteem, so that if they do get knocked in life, they can approach that from a really powerful way, and not let it sway and make them have doubts about themselves. So,
Mm. Yeah, I love that, the way that you are empowering children and supporting parents, with by 'cause it's kind of like what we do fits together so well, because obviously I work with parents and you work with the children. And I'm working with parents to help them step into their power and be authentically themselves and know that they can parent from this place, and that is massively valuable. And obviously you're working with the children to empower them, to be authentically themselves and to know that they are loved in this world and that they are valuable and that they have a voice.
definitely, yeah, totally. They have to have a voice that is heard, and at the moment, children don't tend to do that. So,
Mhm.
thing I'm trying to do as well in my work is to give children that voice, because their opinion does matter to
Mhm.
the world.
Yes, absolutely. So tell us a bit about the driving force then behind you, because you mentioned that you were bullied. So tell us a bit about your experience that's brought you to do the work you do.
Yeah, so I was bullied from primary school, all the way up into my high school. Um, and one specific event happened in when I was 15, 16. It's on the day of my drama GCSE, actually. That just changed how I looked at things.
Mm.
Totally. There was an incident, and I actually voiced how I felt, and it went quite wrong and ended with my mum being attacked.
Mm.
And at that point, I was just like, I became very quiet, and I just sort of went under. I didn't voice myself again. And it's only recently that I've refound my voice and become and doing what I do. And I just don't want it to take that long, like in my case, 22 years, or however long it is, to realize that they do matter and that they can speak out and that things aren't going to go wrong when they do. So
Mhm.
it's very much that when things do go wrong, they don't have to just slip under the radar and just become this sort of, how can I put it, almost like a pawn, just so as they go along through life wishy-washed around because they're too frightened to actually speak up. So
Mhm.
it make them realize that what they do and what they say does matter,
Mhm.
and they can overcome things won't always be easy, but they need to stay true to themselves and to their values and work with that, and not just let it slip and make them feel worthless and like they're not important.
Mhm. Mhm. So if somebody was in that sort of situation, because what I'm hearing as well with you, with what happened with you, was you did speak up, and then this awful thing happened off the back of that. And I can only imagine the kind of the guilt and the, all the stuff, all the emotions that would have come from that, leading to your silencing, right? So um what would you say, are there any tools that you share with young people that you feel you can kind of share to help that not happen to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think if, because in that specific situation it had escalated over a very long time.
Mm,
So some of the things we do when we talk about the power of words, and I use different analogies, and it's about voicing how you feel at that time. So as soon as an incident happens, you have the confidence to say, we call it a sandwich technique. So there's an event that happens that leaves you feeling a certain way, which is the feeling, and then the top slice is the solution to it. So if
mhm,
someone's unkind to you, you say to them or a teacher, they've made me feel like this, so can
mhm.
we sort it out? And I think if that's done really early on, then things don't escalate. And if
Yes.
it doesn't work, then they don't feel that that didn't work. They carry on and they go. They still don't let it knock their confidence. They just say, you're still not being very, very kind, and just work through it, and just teaching them to know that. So we all have different behaviors, and we don't know what's going on with that specific child for them to be mean, but it's not acceptable to behave in a certain way just
Mhm,
because you feel that way. So it's about teaching them that they may feel really angry at someone, but you sometimes don't just lash out. You think about how it will affect them, and we use things like bubbles and wristbands to try and calm them down and get them to think about things before they then proceed with going to the teacher and saying, this person's done this and it's upset me. And then
mhm,
that just avoids the whole bullying aspect, because if all children thought like that and processed it in that way, things
mhm.
would just naturally sort themselves out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So, really, well, getting that support and speaking up and knowing that you can have a voice, that you can speak up, that you can get the help. Um, and do you find, because I know you work with the children, but you don't necessarily work with the adults. So do you find that the adults are responsive to the children who work with you?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
the adults, yeah, they are. They know they want their child to be able to be strong in themselves. So
Hmm.
that is a major bonus, because they then get the support at home to carry on like learning how to do those tools, and they have that support at home.
Mm,
Obviously in situations there isn't that support, and that's where my role comes in, because I'm that sort of sounding board. I'm that person that they can come to.
hmm,
And it's just knowing they have a safe space. So if
hmm,
I had someone who I knew was my safe space, that I could tell, that it wouldn't have exploded how it necessarily did. So it's just
Mm-hmm.
giving them that support, so as they know, you know, that they can speak out and things will be dealt with properly.
Yeah. And like you say, I love that sense of having that safe space. I always say to parents that you are your child's safe space, you know. And it's important for parents to be aware of that, but also and support, you know, their children with what they're going through. But I love that, you know, there are children who don't have that have you as that for them, which is great, you know, that they've got that support from someone else who has been in the same place, who understands where they're coming from, you know. Yeah, I think that's, yeah, I think that's so great.
Yeah, I think it just helps them to, because I can sort of say, well, I chose, because like working from the NLP point of view, it's like how you choose to do things, and I I can tell them my examples and say, well, I chose to keep quiet, which then made
Hmm.
things worse, whereas what I
Hmm.
should have done, and then they can sort of see what would happen if they didn't do the things and go through the sort of the tools and the techniques that I show them. They
Hmm.
can see through my story where not necessarily it will end up like that, and because obviously that was the extreme of many years of stuff, but they can sort of see, and I don't necessarily tell them all of that,
Yes, yeah.
but they can sort of see where it could lead, and that, you know, my whole childhood and teenage years were really miserable at school, so
Hmm.
if they don't want that, then, you know, they've got these, that's why I'm there to give them these techniques to help them. So
Yeah. The other thing that I was thinking would be really great to also talk about is, um so, you know, you've talked about being bullied, and I assume you work with children as well who are maybe on the other side, who are maybe exhibiting behaviors or, you know, labeled as a bully. Um, and I'm wondering how you support children in who are who found themselves in that role, you know.
yeah, it's, I mean, it's difficult, not going to lie, because as we all know, once you're given a label, trying
Hmm.
to not have that label is very difficult. It's easy to get one and not so easy to shift it.
Yeah.
um, so it's it's about trying to understand, so there's normally a root cause of it,
Hmm.
and it's just about, again, how they, getting them to regulate themselves. So things like the wristbands and the bubbles, and we have a credit card for happiness to gauge their mood, and just being very mindful of how they're feeling. And
Hmm.
they start feeling that they're going to lash out, they use one of the tools that they have got to try
Hmm.
and calm them down before it gets to that point.
Hmm.
um, and obviously you can't undo everything that you have done, but you can learn a new way of doing things. And, you know, by admitting that you've done something wrong, and also by apologizing, you know,
Hmm.
taking that
Hmm.
responsibility and saying, I was wrong and I am sorry, is a big step, especially for a child to do that.
Yeah. And
And
you know, I think so much of that learning as well, you know, I talk about with parents a lot. You know, I think parents often feel a pressure to be some kind of perfect parent, and, you know, to always and not being able to live up to that, and the guilt and all of the stuff that comes out. Um, but there's a massive gift, I think, and huge learning in those times when we're not able to be our best self. You know, when we model that for our children, and how we clean up after ourselves, how we make amends, how that's so, you know, I I think it's so important for parents to understand it's not about being perfect. It's not about getting it right all the time. Um, it's, you know, because we're human, that's impossible. We're never going to be that, right? But that it's massively valuable to have those times where we mess up, where we're not able to be our best selves, but we're able to clean it up, where we're able to make amends for losing our rag, you know, with our children, or doing things in a way that's out of alignment with how we want to be being in the world, how we want to be parenting, how we want to be being with other human beings. And so our children learn from that. Our children learn from us, you know, they learn how to do that by our modeling of that, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if we do something wrong, that and we take responsibility and we apologize, you know, to
Mm-hmm.
children, which is a thing that, you know, people don't always want to apologize to children, but
Mm-hmm.
they are human and we expect them to apologize.
Yeah.
So if they see us taking responsibility, then you won't have to do the whole, well, say sorry and mean it, because they will automatically know that they have done something wrong. And instead of the, oh, sorry, because they don't actually know it, they will actually own what they have done and say, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to do
Mm-hmm.
this,
Mm-hmm.
because they have seen how we've done something wrong and how when we apologize, we mean it. We don't apologize just because we have to. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
and it is just so important to model those things, the same as letting them see you cry sometimes
Yeah.
because we were upset. It's, you know, if they
Mm-hmm.
never see us cry, then they will think that crying is not something that you do. Whereas if they say, okay, it's okay to cry because that is how you're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
then they are going to do that, which then of course has a knock-on effect with feeling the pent-up anger and everything, because they've
Mm.
managed to release it. So there's so much that goes on at home that we can do to model to our children how.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And of course that you know, the work that I do is all about that, you know, the um a massive part of it is the emotional part of it, the that all feelings are valid, all feelings are accepted, all emotion is accepted. And you know, there is behavior, you know, it's behavior that we're managing, that we're helping to express those emotions and have them come out and move through in the most positive and productive ways, you know, for everybody. Yeah, I love that there's so much synergy in what we do. So yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on today. It's not going to be a long one today. We're going to keep it quite short. But I wanted to have this chat with you, and you know, for people to get a sense of what you do and a sense of you know, yeah, the different aspects of bullying and our child's mental health, which I think we've got a real sense of in this conversation. Was there anything else that you were thinking, oh, I must say that, I must leave them with this?
Um, Not really. I mean, there was something. I mean, I always use, well, I don't always, but there's an analogy which is really powerful for parents and children actually, is that when you have a feeling, explaining to them that it's like a cloud and that a cloud doesn't stay in front of the sun and dim its light the whole time. It's there, but then it moves on. And
Mm.
not that it hasn't gone in front of the sun, it has, but then it's moved.
Oh, we lost you briefly there.
Oh, sorry, I do apologize.
It's all right.
My bad. The feelings that we have, we accept them, and they will pass. We don't have to push them down or anything. They will not.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's a lovely analogy, isn't it? That they do pass, then, you know, the cloud disperses, doesn't it? And the sun comes out again. So yeah, that's lovely. Well, that's a lovely note to finish up on. Where can people connect with you, Cassie?
So I have a Facebook group, and I'm on LinkedIn as well and
Mhm.
Instagram. So I'm on all of those places.
Yeah.
So if you just put in Cassie Swift, or True You Kids Life Studio, I'll pop up.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And thanks everybody for listening.